Okay, friends, here we go. We are in chapter 19 today. In fact, we're in most of chapter 19. We're not going to read the last little bit of it. And I got to tell you, there is so much good stuff today. It is taking a tremendous amount of self-restraint for me to not dig into all of this and make this a super long video, but I preached on a lot of this a couple of years ago. So I'm going to hone in on the Zacchaeus story at the beginning, but the rest of it, like verses 11 through the end of our reading for today, I guess 44, I think what's happening there is that Jesus is setting up for us the distinction between the kind of ruler that he is and the kind of ruler that most human kings are. And he's weeping then over Jerusalem because he knows that they are not choosing wisely, and it is going to lead to their destruction. I won't go into the details, but this parable in verses 11 through 27, I don't think this is a parable where the king in the story represents God. In a lot of Jesus's stories, the king represents God. I don't think so. I think this is a king who's an ordinary human king, and Jesus is saying, is that the kind of king you want? Or do you want the kind of king who rides in humbly on a donkey? And then he reflects, because he knows what the people are going to choose. Okay, I even spent more time on that than I had intended to. But I think that's part of what's going on there. Lots of details that I won't go into. But let's look at this Zacchaeus story. This is a famous story. You probably, if you grew up in the church, know about the wee little man, Zacchaeus. That's what this is about. There's stuff in here that we don't always see in the kids' version. So he entered Jericho and was passing through. That's Jesus. He's about to enter into Jerusalem, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. And he was a chief tax collector and was rich. You may know this, but tax collectors at the time were not well-loved folks in the community. In fact, they were despised, and for good reason. The chief tax collector would have been someone who had been swindling his own people, fellow Jews, for years in order to get into that position. He would have been swindling people. Because not only is he working for the Roman government, which he is, but he is also likely, as many of them were, charging extra on the top, taking money for himself. Probably how he became rich. Not just because the Romans are paying him, but because he's taking even more. Hated man in the community. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. Now note at this point, he's not seeking to follow Jesus. He just wants to get a look at the guy. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was of small stature. He's a little guy, and there are big people in front of him, and he can't get a look. Now, if you have become a chief tax collector, you don't take no for an answer very easily. So he doesn't just stand there and say, oh man, what a bummer. There's a tall guy. No. He runs down, finds a sycamore tree, climbs up it so that he could watch him pass by. He's like tenacious in this. And when Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must. That's the Greek word there, day, which carries the implication of like there's no other choice. Not I really want to, but there's no other option here. I have to stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. People are not happy that Jesus is doing this. He has gone in to be a guest of a man who is a sinner. What's Jesus doing? Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Okay, what can we learn from this? What's Jesus up to? He's not here, as we've seen before, just for people who've got it all figured out, right? A hospital is not for people who are well, it is for people who are sick. He has come to find people, not who have already been found, but to find people who are lost. One of the children of Abraham, one of the Jews, Zacchaeus, is very, very lost. Jesus goes, and he finds him. And what I love about this is that the beginning and the end are connected to each other. At the beginning, what's happening? Zacchaeus, he can't see Jesus physically. So he changes his position. He changes his place. He climbs up a tree, and then he can see Jesus from a different vantage point. What happens here at the end? He changes again. He changes his kind of place. And he goes from being one who is swindling others to one who is blessing others. He doesn't just restore what he has taken, but he restores what he's taken fourfold. And he goes even beyond that, and he gives half of what he has to the poor. He likely does not have much left. at this point, because likely most of what he has because he has swindled folks. He's playing fourfold that, and he's then giving half of the rest of it to the poor. He was on the ground and he couldn't see, so he changed his vantage point. He's metaphorically like in the bottom, swindling other people, and he metaphorically climbs that tree and begins living a different life, giving his life away. Why? Because he got his eyes on Jesus. It changed everything. I ask you this. Is it possible that your vantage point needs to change? Is it possible that in some area of your life that you're just not seeing clearly, that you're not seeing God? And maybe it's because there are things between you and Jesus, and it's time to climb up that metaphorical sycamore tree and look. Perhaps your eyes are so fixated on the back of the person in front of you. It's so fixated on your problems. It's so fixated on the things that aren't going well. And what Jesus is compelling you to do is to say, stop looking at their backs. Go climb the tree. Get your eyes on me. And maybe what will come from that is just some radical life change. Some change in our hearts and some change in our minds, the way it was for Zacchaeus. Keep your reading going, friends. And I'll see you later this week.